Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everyone. This is me, Jonathan Alexander, and I'm here to host our show, Life, Laughter, Happiness. Today, I have my co-host, Barbara, here. Are you there, Barbara?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everybody.
And our guest today, I met on Instagram. Her name is Megan Harris, and she's an expert with autism. She has a son that has autism, and I sort of, understood, a little bit about what we're probably going through, because whenever she talks about her son, I think his name is Gage. Is that his name?
Yes. Cool. I love that name. Hi, Megan.
Hey.
Oh, I'm sorry, Johnny. Hi. You're welcome. I'm sorry I cut into your wonderful intro. Continue the intro. I'm so sorry.
Okay. But what I was going to say, and then we can start, is that, I sort of, my nephew is sort of maybe a little bit like your son. I mean, he's, it's like he'll say things, even though it's not always appropriate, it's kind of a cute way of looking at it. Like, he'll say he has a crush on a girl at school who is she does the weather. This is before the coronavirus. And she would go up and she would list the weather and she would read the weather and everything. And what happened was that Van had a huge crush on her. So he'll talk about it. He'll say, every time I see her, I have little hearts going off in my head, And it's funny because I've done that too, since he's done it. Like, I've talked to Barbara about, various women that I found attractive. And I think maybe one of her friends, I won't say her name on the air, that's embarrassing, but I've said before, it's like, oh my God, I have little hearts go off in my head every time I see her. And so me and him are a lot alike in a lot of aspects. You understand what I'm saying, Megan and Barbara?
Yes. Oh. I'm just walking as I do the show. You guys, yes, and I do see that. You see that, and that's interesting, very interesting, and I can't wait to talk to Van today on the show. But Megan, I have to let the listeners know what we were talking about just a little bit before we move on. And that was when I was telling you that I was working with Johnny on this radio show for a year, and I had no idea he has autism. I did not know that. So that is saying a lot for autistic people. And I was thinking that, autistic people, hey, I love them. They actually see certain things so much differently and so much deeper, and also the things that don't matter, they understand that too. It's like they understand things just a little bit differently. So things started to make more sense with Johnny. But I did not even notice. And that's why I wanted you to go over the spectrum. It must be very broad. And how should we start? There's so much. Like, how should we start? What is the first thing we should know as people to understand autism?
Absolutely. Well, autism is a spectrum. If you have met a person with autism, you have met one person with autism. Autism can present in different ways. It may look like someone with challenges with socialization or anxiety in social situations. It can look like difficulty with changes in routine or inflexibility. The person may display repetitive or ritualistic behaviors or movements. They may have learning disabilities. They may look like they have ADHD. They may have motor deficits, emotional or behavior problems, communication disorders. So this person with autism, they may talk and speak like you and I, or they may be completely nonverbal. They may do quirky things like toe walking, or have a fascination with spinning or moving objects. They may have stimming behaviors, but not every person will exhibit all of these behaviors. They're going to be their own perfect recipe of their functioning, and
Oh, wow.
which is
I like the way you put that, a perfect recipe. And they are individuals, but every human is an individual. So how many years has it been since we've realized, hey, we're naming it autism. This is what it is. We've researched it. When did that happen? And then how much has it changed since then?
Oh, man. Okay, so the origin of autism goes back to around the 1950s and 60s. There was a professor, I believe he was in Australia, and he was encountering patients that had these quirks that were nonverbal or verbal, and they couldn't function in everyday life in the way we do. And so they started that trajectory into that division and classification of the label of autism. And autism is to have Asperger's on the autism as a diagnosis, and now they've just put it under the autism spectrum umbrella.
Yeah.
My son, for instance, is 17 now, and he was 4 when he got a diagnosis, and this was back in the dark ages of autism. This was in the early 2000s, and his original diagnosis, they call it PDD-NOS, pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. And so that was the diagnosis we got in the beginning, and it was like, okay, what is this? What do we do with this?
Right. And, well, you found out.
Yes, found out indeed. We did. My son, Gage, is 17 now, and he was nonverbal until he was 5. He was not potty trained. His communication included grunting, pointing, falling in the floor, running away. Didn't want to be around neurotypical peers. He preferred adults versus children. And so we started the trajectory on, okay, what is autism? Back then, I was not an autism specialist. I wasn't even a speech therapist or knew of the behavior world, and he was the catalyst for all of it.
Was this your first child?
Is my first child. I have 3, but I actually adopted Gage. I didn't give birth to Gage, but I met Gage when he was 2, and he had no words, no language. He couldn't hold eye contact. He would toe walk around, line all of his toys up, scream and holler whenever things weren't going his way or he didn't understand. And, at the time, I married his biological father. So, in essence, for a while, I was his stepmother, and then I legally adopted Gage and became his mother.
Oh, great. That is wonderful. Thank goodness that Gage, some people think that the baby chooses the parent. And if that is so, he did a good job. I mean, you just became so dedicated, not just to him, but to the whole science of it, to the whole research, and you became an expert, didn't you?
What happened
it's
to
definitely my
Gage's
passion.
biological mother? What happened to Gage's biological mother?
Oh, okay. Well, she loves Gage very much, and there was a legal decision that granted us full custody and allowed me to adopt Gage. She still loves and cares about Gage very much. Before we moved to Hawaii 3 years ago, that was the last time he saw her. But I communicate with her and let her know how Gage is doing. I tell Gage he is the luckiest kid in the world because he has 2 moms that love him more than anything. And that's something I've always tried to bring along is love is love is love. There's no wrong way.
But the circumstances are the way they are now, and he's loved, and you're explaining it very well to him. That's wonderful. But he's 17 now, and so how is he doing? Because I know when you work with autistic children, they really can learn and excel and do really well, no matter no matter where on the spectrum at all they are. Can they actually maybe learn, like what we just said?
I would say there is always hope. No matter where your child or grown child is developmentally, there's always a way to improve quality of life and communication in some way.
Okay, great. And how is your son now? How is Gage?
How is
That's
Gage?
the total coolest name ever, by the way. Love that name.
Gage is amazing. You know, I tell Gage every day that he is my teacher. He teaches me things about myself and the world and how to teach him just by being himself. Now he can talk to people in his environment. We go to the grocery store and we work on what is private information versus public information. So we're still working on those layers of language and communication and those social structures that say, oh, you know, that's something that stays in the family, or, oh, no, that's something you tell everybody. And so there's those finite lines in language communication socialization that we don't really talk about or teach. That's kind of where we're at now. He doesn't really understand sarcasm.
A good example of that is that you know, when you're I think I was doing this when I was growing up. You know, this is something that Van sort of does. Van will I think it was after he had experienced a few deaths in the family, you know, death in the family, you know. He didn't know quite how to handle it or quite how to socially handle a death in the family because it's sort of like it's frustrating. I mean, these are people that you really care about, and you can't, you know, and he would like talk about the fact that the relative passed away, you know, about several times afterwards.
Did he understand? How did he understand it?
It's just he understood it. It's just that I think what it is that this way of handling it was kind of frustrating. It's sort of like walking up to people and then saying, you know, like he would walk up to people that he would say, well, you know, boy, I would really hate for something to happen to my parents. That he would keep talking over and over again about how, boy, I would really hate for something to happen to my parents, you know. And I think it's not, he understood. It's just that I think what you have to understand is it's actually probably a lot of the stuff we're thinking, really. It's just that he doesn't know.
That's right. Yes.
It's not. It's just that we're letting it out, sort of like. And I think that it's not that he doesn't have love in him. He does. It's just that it's let out. It's just sort of like he'll actually sit down and he'll say, he'll talk out loud to the person that was deceased, you know, and then, you know, I mean, you know, and it's not that, again, it's not that he doesn't care. It's not that he doesn't show love. It's just that he has to let it out. It has to come out. You know, it's sort of like when you're
Isn't that fine? I mean, isn't that fine if he sits there and he acts like he's talking to them? What's wrong with that? I mean, okay, if it's out in front of people, yes, that might be embarrassing to other people, but it's not to him. And who's to say what is right or what's wrong? I mean, that's him. He's being him. He's not hurting anybody. I understand people want to protect people from being embarrassed, but around your own home, I mean, don't you accept that? I mean, or do you say, that's wrong, they're not really there? I mean, what do you guys do? I would say, cool, talk to them if you want. That's how I would do it.
For me, I would definitely tell Gage if that's something he was doing, I would be fine with it. There are, you know, professionals in different fields, in the autism-related fields, that may try to change that behavior because it's not normal, quote unquote. But at the same time, I think that Jonathan's point was saying the element of knowing what information to speak and what information to keep internal, that is not, there's no filter there always to let you know what is okay to share and what is not okay to share. So that's something that we don't even really teach, to be honest. It's not But there's
true.
so many elements of autism that you said of, what are we accepting and what are we changing and why? These are
They're very literal
questions.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yes. And Johnny told me that. They're very literal. And I like that because it's cut and dry. Okay, I know if I ask Johnny this certain question, the normal question way, it's going to be answered. I love that about the autistic spectrum. I love the literal thing. So you have to go down to the basic literal thing, like, okay, we're teaching you how to say this, but there's also a time, and then there's another place, and then there's around people, and there's so many aspects that have to be taught. So are they teaching that then? Oh, great.
It's stuff like that's often left to the family to teach and go through. There are elements in socialization, therapy, ABA therapy, even different fringe modalities that deal with autism that may teach some of that, but generally as a whole, that category would fall into figurative language. So things like sarcasm, idioms, figurative speech may not be interpreted. Right. Even something as small as elementary as a simile. You are like a cup. Well, how am I like?
He has a real hard time.
Right.
He has a real hard time, like with being teased, not joking around with him and what it is, and I mean seriously, if and also he basically, when I wanted to go, I was about ready. I had to cancel due to Corona, but I was going to go see Barb on my birthday, and so I was upstairs. And there's this little knock on the door, and then comes Van, and he goes, well, I was just thinking, and apparently this is the way Van is. If somebody's having fun, and he's not a part of it, he's upset. So what will happen is that, is that he'll come in, and then he'll be like, because see, what's happened is that Van has been on vacations a lot with my parents before, but he's never been on a vacation with me. So he's never had that happen. So when he heard I was going on a vacation, he became fascinated by it. So he came in and he says, I was just thinking that your parents can go with you, and then we can go to Florida to see your friend Barbara, and then we can come back to Atlanta, and then May 28th and have a party for you. And it was like he didn't quite understand that that there are certain things that he doesn't
I know, but Johnny, then you sometimes are too much of a softie too, and you're like, okay, well, let me ask Barbara, and then Johnny calls me and asks if Van could come too. I'm like, I don't know if I'm set up for this, Johnny. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, but see, Van's parents are very strong, and they do say they have boundaries. But Johnny's the sweet uncle that's like, well, let me ask Barbara, But I mean, that was cute and enduring. I mean, that's so sweet, and the love. But not all of the autistic children out there do have wonderful families like Megan's child and your child, and a lot of others that have great families. But some, they have impatient parents, single struggling parents that don't have time, they think, or resources to teach the autistic children the way that they need to be taught. So what's happening with these children, Megan?
That's a great question. Autism is looked at, that's just in the United States. Let's look at autism from a global perspective. Different countries view autism in very different ways. Some families would hide the child away, and nobody in the community would ever know they have a child with autism. Some communities call these people their shamans. I mean, there is such
so they're
a
highly
range.
Regarded. Wow.
There's such a range on how we view the autism spectrum.
Wow. Interesting. That is very interesting. So some people are in the dark ages where they don't know what's wrong, but they think something is, so they send them away. That is so wrong. But when you said they found out in the 50s and 60s, I hope that they, were treating them well, and before that,
well,
I just,
you know, Barbara,
I felt so bad.
I'm going to be honest with you. You know, in the field, in the professional field, there's been a lot of trial and error, and quite honestly, there's been some very inhumane things that have happened to people on the spectrum over the course of time, even presently. Example: my child went to school, and he had this thing where he was crossing his arms. And his teacher told him that if he crossed his arms again, she was going to bring handcuffs, so he couldn't cross his arms anymore. Someone told that to my child. He came home so upset. And I am going, oh, my goodness. Is this how we're teaching now?
And did she know that he was autistic?
That teacher.
Did she?
Oh, yes.
Did she know?
Teacher, yes.
Really?
Oh,
That's
yes.
so abusive.
Yes, that happens, and we've got to talk. We've got to have conversations about how we teach these children. In Hawaii especially, I came from Texas, and I moved to Hawaii 3 years ago. When I came to Hawaii, I felt like I had gone back to those dark ages of autism when he was diagnosed in the beginning, when there were no resources, no professionals. Everything, any treatment that you had, you paid out of pocket for because insurance didn't cover it. And the way they were treated, comparing it to Hawaii now, is almost like these children were cattle, and we have to herd them in the direction we want them to go, and it is so opposite. We have to teach with love, acceptance, compassion, empathy. We can't teach and rule by fear. That's not really teaching.
You know, it's actually kind of funny
for any
they
study.
actually, I don't know if Barbara knows this or not, but I'm sure you might know this, Megan. There are some people that are famous that they think may, even though they're not diagnosed, be on the autistic spectrum. One of them is Bill Gates. Another one is, I'm not kidding about Bill Gates. I mean, there's some people that think that
I believe it.
Steve Jobs was. Actually, I've often wondered about, they say Steven Spielberg. I've often wondered about Stephen King, to be honest with you, because they interviewed him once and they asked him what a typical day he did. And he goes, well, you know, I wake up at 6 a.m. and I go down, you know, and I go to the pool, and I swim a couple of miles, and then I go up into the attic and I write until like 5 p.m. in the afternoon. I'm like, anybody that does that, you know, has got to be a fanatic. I've wondered about Tim Burton. I've wondered about what's his name, the head singer of the Talking Heads. You know, there's I think what it is that, you know, is that we're very quirky. Elton John is another one that I've heard, and another one is Marlon Brando. That's another one that I've heard.
You know what, Jonathan?
And
I'm gonna venture to say that we are all somewhere on this spectrum. We all learn in our own unique ways. We have our own idiosyncrasies and quirks. We all have our things that separate us from what is normal or neurotypical, and it might be our inability to socialize. It might be our inability to communicate in a way that we are understood. It could be that we're all somewhere.
What about phobias? What about phobias, Megan? What about phobias?
I want to tell you another name that you ought to look up, Andy Kaufman. You remember who he was?
Yes. There's a movie about him out there. Jim Carrey plays him.
Man on the Moon. Did you see Man on the Moon, either one of you?
Yes.
I did not.
You see, the thing about this Andy Kaufman person is that Andy Kaufman would never be out of character. And then people would wonder, like, what was going on. And to the point where when he finally got cancer and started dying, everybody thought he was faking it. And there's also people, there are some people that still think he's still alive because it's just that he was so good at playing jokes on people and it was like, it's sort of funny. It's sort of like, he was more of a he was sort of a PG version of Sacha Baron Cohen. Is who basically just would,
yes.
There have been some comparisons between Sacha Baron Cohen and Andy Kaufman because
Why
Sacha,
is he autistic?
Well, I don't know if Sacha Baron Cohen is autistic, but I know that what Sacha Baron Cohen does is he'll go in, he'll take the joke so far to the point where you're actually interviewing him, and then he's in another character, and then he's still in the character, and then 3 days will go by, he's still in the character, and Andy Kaufman. Is that Andy Kaufman's wasn't as vulgar, as Sacha Baron Cohen was, but like Andy Kaufman would do things like, okay, yes, well, we're gonna, I'm gonna do this little. I mean, Andy Kaufman was like sort of infatuated with Howdy Doody, and he was, that's sort of the stuff that he did. Sorry.
Johnny,
sorry, but on a rant.
Don't have to be sorry, but I was just going to ask you because you love to do this, not on the show normally, which is fine because we're looking at autistic people, but you love to analyze things. Megan, that autistic people actually, number one, analyze things, but number two, analyze other people that may have autism.
I think every person with autism is different, and I'd like to draw something to your attention. You mentioned autistic and a person with autism. Johnny, do you have a preference? I mean, I know some people will tell me I'm not autistic. I am a person with autism. This word doesn't define me as a person. It's something different.
Well, I will tell you that it's a very broad spectrum. They say if you see 20, how you said earlier, if you see one person with autism, you meet one person with autism.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, You're actually going to see 20 people with Asperger's. You're going to find out why they're alike rather than they're different. Because, see, the thing is, one of the defining factors about autism, or rather Asperger's, is that you do not develop peer-related groups that are appropriate to your age. And, it's sort of like, it's sort of like, you tend to pick one topic and stick with it. I think the thing is, I am guilty of picking a topic and sticking with it, but I don't talk about it. For instance, if I was to talk about the topic, I'd be talking about the show all the time. But I don't, because it's just sort of like, that's why I hardly ever really talk about the show with my parents or the channel. Because I knew, if I was to talk about it, I wouldn't stop. It would be constant.
Kind of like an alcoholic.
Or
yeah.
something you're really passionate about, right, Johnny?
Yeah. I wish that he would just talk
that
about it.
I think that is something that is common, Barbara, is that individuals with autism do have things that they fixate on and focus on. I'm willing to bet there are so many computer programmers who work for Google. There's a program out of Dallas of SMU where they're training our children that have that fixation on computers and technology to be programmers in that sense. So that's a key right here. Johnny, you did it. You found something you were passionate about and you made it your work.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He did it. I mean, how many people? He's had this podcast for 12 years. He had a dream.
Wow.
And it took a while. It's taken like a year and a half for it to get to where he wants it. Like right now since it became something like a year and a half ago, right, Johnny? Oh, my gosh. Yeah. He made it happen. And he's so conditioned to not talk about it with his family that he still does it. But it's like they have to know, autistic people, you can change maybe the behavior. You can, be now proud. Now you do talk.
Every behavior, you can change any behavior if you know the function of the behavior and where you're going with it. Absolutely. And also a point, Jonathan, the fact that you have actualized your dreams as a person with autism gives all of us so much hope. My son wants to work at the Maui Aquarium and have a job and drive a car one day. And I tell him everything is possible. He can do anything he puts his mind to, and you are living, walking proof of that.
That's true.
Because I have my own TV channel, and it feels really good to say. Actually, I should say we have our own TV channel. Me and Barbara, we have it, because I couldn't do a lot of this stuff without her. But I mean, it's fun.
I didn't know that was his
people.
dream. It was his dream to have a TV channel, and he recently did it. And
channel,
I thought your dream was just to have the podcast.
Yeah, well, my dream was to
What's
do a
Johnny?
lot of stuff. Well, I mean, I think that, I found out what my dreams were, it sort of it became a dream. But see, what it is that I wanted to create a community where people were helping each other out. And Barbara is someone who fits the mold. She understands what I'm trying to do. So, when I came to creating a TV channel, I told her I was gonna create a TV channel. I was gonna make sure that we were in the cockpit together. That's my way of saying I want her to be there to help us to be there to make the decisions together. And the thing is that I also told Barbara at the beginning, I said, bring your friends on the air. Bring your friends on the air. So,
from the
Barbara
beginning he said that.
What?
And I did. And from the beginning he said that. And from the beginning I did. And then what happened? Like, some people didn't like it. And with Johnny, you know what? Our path was our path. And he said, well, if you don't like it, bye-bye. And I love that. And Johnny had a backbone. And I'm like, face it. You can do it. Nobody likes confrontation. Not on that issue, but other little things. And he's doing it, Megan. He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's
awesome.
now.
I love it.
Kind of surprised Barbara a little bit, but I think it was because of the fact that I had told Barbara to bring your friends on the air, and I'm not going to sit there and say, maybe we'll just be over this friend and be with that friend, because if I do that, Barbara's going to hold back. And that Barbara is a networker. She has friends, she has connections.
Okay. Barbara's going to hold back. No, and it's just, Johnny's so sweet. Your friends, it must be great. So let's have them on. And then my friends, just Megan, happened to be a lot of Playboy playmates. And there were a couple other people that were not happy with that were like part of the show. So then he said bye-bye to them, because that's why I was here. Johnny looks around on Instagram for exciting people that he finds interesting. So we're in that. We're a group of people that he does. And you know what? That's why I am here. Thank you, Playboy. And that is a perk I have. I am more noticed in the world. And thank you. That's great.
And that's not something
Johnny, and that doesn't mean I'm a horrible person because I posed in the magazine 27 years ago. It just means that I stuck out and he chose me. Well, if people have a problem with that, then bye-bye. And I love that because Johnny, he has a backbone. And you know what? Autistic people who are listening right now, you can have one too. Because I've noticed he struggles with that a little bit. And he's doing it, though. And it's amazing. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I don't have autism. I mean, I do a little bit on the spectrum probably, according to Megan. And that's great. I thought maybe I did, and I thought maybe a lot of people do. Well, fact is, everybody does.
If we looked at the world from that perspective, how much more patience, acceptance, and grace would we give our fellow human? Knowing Gage has autism, I'm going to teach him and interact with him in a different way, and might give him more flexibility or teach in a different way than I would with someone who is neurotypical. But what if we held that hat of we all are our own individual person?
Exactly, because I'm not going around saying, by the way, when I introduce, hold on, Johnny, do 1 second. By the way, when I go around introducing Johnny to people or talking about my show to people, I never say, by the way, my co-host has autism, just, for FYI. I never have done that in my entire life. And my daughter even notices, you never make excuses. I'm like, I don't have to, and I don't think it's appropriate. And Johnny is Johnny. I introduce Johnny as Jonathan Alexander. He goes by Johnny, and that is it. sayonara, you're on your own. I'm not babying. He doesn't need it. You know what? I think that would actually hurt him if I babied him, and hurt our whole show.
I have a question. Now, I mean, sometimes people who have
you don't even
autism,
let her respond.
Oh God, I'm sorry. Go on with what you said. Go on, respond.
What do you think about what I said, Megan, about not baby? I mean, I'm not a mom.
What does that mean?
I'm not comparing myself.
What does that mean to baby someone? What does that mean to you? What is the definition of that to you?
Okay, to baby somebody would to be making excuses about, I'm sorry that they said something, they put their foot in their mouth, or I'm sorry that they rubbed you the wrong way or said something, they didn't mean to actually say it that way. They have autism. That's what I mean.
You mean not necessarily baby Johnny, but baby Johnny to the world, be his buffer, and you're not going to make excuses for him. Do I have that right?
Put some disclaimer up on the website or up on our show description and disclaimer of, by the way, I work with an autistic person. I don't feel like I should do that. I don't feel like that's appropriate. I feel like that would be also babying the whole situation.
One of the things I love to do is when I'm working with a new family and I meet someone, or if they know I'm a mom of a child with autism, they may be more relatable. They may feel I'm more relatable. They may let their guard down and go, oh, you see my world. I can talk to you. You understand some of what I've gone through as a person. And so these labels are things that can be, we can look at them from many perspectives. They can be positive because of this diagnosis we may get services and treatment, or they can be negative and cause stigma to the person. Or, like you said, you feel like you are giving information that might not be yours to give. I think people with autism are amazing. Absolutely, incredibly amazing. And if we will take the time.
Sorry, that leads into my question, because, it's actually kind of funny because with the way Van, even though it may not be accurate, you do kind of see a little bit of like he'll say something and then it'll be like, gee, I never thought of it that way, like the whole thing about him being afraid of the tooth fairy, or him thinking that, or he used to, and one thing is that he thought I was deaf, because every time that my mom would call out to me, it would be from her in the bed, from downstairs. So, and so what would happen is at night when he would say his prayers, this is what he would do. He would say the names of everybody. He would go, Nana, Papa, Cassie, Sasha, Uncle John. And he would scream out my name even when he said it. But I guess what I'm curious about is, has Gage ever made an observation from being autism that you look at it and you're like, oh my God, I never would have thought of it that way?
Gage has taught me so much, so very, 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 very much. He has the ability to pick up on my tone better than anyone. So I can walk in and speak, and he's like, oh, you need a hug, what's wrong? And like you said, every person with autism is different. So while one person might have that skill of empathy, another person with autism might not. And so Gage has also taught me patience in moments where I have spent hours and hours and hours teaching a skill, like, for instance, showering or doing the dishes. These are things I've spent years teaching. And so one of the things he taught me is how to be even more patient. And how not to get frustrated when he's not understanding. Because as a parent, that's what we do. You're like 5 times and you're not getting it. We talk to our neurotypical children that way. Children with autism, we get to our threshold, and as parents, sometimes we don't know what to do. So one of the greatest things he's taught me It's how to be just a little bit more patient.
Yes,
it's not his
I
fault.
love that.
He's not understanding and asking questions. It's on me as his teacher to teach him in a manner that he can receive and learn, because that's the difference
Where did you
between
learn?
teaching and telling. Say
Where
that again,
did you
sorry?
learn how to teach? Where did you learn how to
Where
teach this way,
I
or
would
is this
say
natural?
It is a life school of being a mom of a child with autism 24/7, 365 days a year. In addition to that, Barbara, because of Gage, I told you he wasn't talking. I went back to school about 10, 15 years ago and learned speech-language pathology. And so I started teaching him that. Back then, he wasn't articulating his sounds. There are certain sounds he couldn't say in certain positions of the word. So it was as soon as I learned those skills, I applied them to him. And then I went back and learned applied behavior analysis, ABA, as well as how to shape and change behavior. Yeah. So
he really made you further yourself in education and just as a human being and a mom and just the whole love circle of it. He really brought more to your life. How wonderful.
Oh, my goodness. He is my greatest teacher every day. And I cry sometimes. He comes up and hugs me, and he's like, thank you for choosing me. And I'm like, oh, my heart. You know, you don't often get that.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say something else. Like Van, and I don't know if Van will call in tonight, but Van will do this thing where he will socially be awkward but get away with it. Like, for example, I went for a walk with him one time, and he walked up to this couple, and they had a pail. He was about 4 or 5 at the time. He had a pail, 4 or 5, and he picks up the pail, and then he starts playing with it without asking. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then they said, "Okay, it's okay." And then they said, "Okay, it's okay, just it's all right." So as he gets ready to leave, he goes, "Thank you for helping me," and then he hugs the lady, and he walks away. And I'm like, man, he got away with it. So we go to the store, and then, and I'm telling you, I'm checking out the calendar, and I'm walking with him. So I'm like, I said, okay, this is what I want. I want this Red Bull, and I want this milk. And the lady behind the counter goes, well, what about the water? And I said, no. All I have here is the Red Bull and the milk. And she goes, yes, but what about the water? Do you want the water too? I mean, I can bring up the water. I don't understand. I mean, she's talking. I mean, all I have here is a Red Bull and a milk, and here she is talking about the water. And she points behind me, and they had the glass of water, and he picked up a glass of water, and I said, "Oh, guess we're getting water." I I mean, it's just sort
Absolutely.
of. I mean, you can
I understand. Gage, my younger two are 9 and 10, and when I was pregnant, Gage developed a fascination with baby bellies. Only back then, Gage was 7, and he didn't understand that only women could carry babies. So we would be out in public, and Gage would go up and touch a man's big belly and be so excited that there's a baby in there. Or a woman.
Oh, no way.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
Now I understand why you have to teach that. Oh, my gosh.
There are no lines. These social things that we don't often talk about as a whole or teach, they are ever present. And so, parents will tell you stories of their children doing things. I had a client once that I worked with, and we were out in public, and he loved elderly people's skin. He would go up and try to touch their arms, and he just loved the way it felt. And so he was received in many different ways. Some people loved that this child would come up and try to interact with them, and some people were very disgusted that he would touch them. And so it's so amazing how these children are received. So if you are a person out in public and you see a child coming up to you be aware that this child may or may not be neurotypical, and just have a little patience. You see a mom at the grocery store and her child is losing it.
Hey, Johnny, let her finish, please.
Sorry.
John. Okay. And you're at the grocery store.
There's so much to talk about here. If you see a
but I want you to
grocery
finish.
store,
Johnny knows. Yeah.
Her patience and acceptance. I've had I've had people come up to me and tell me I'm a bad parent because I didn't spank my child right then and there in the grocery store as he's throwing a fit, or because when he was a baby, he had a mouthful of metal. He had caps on all of his teeth, and people would be like, well, you don't even brush his teeth. You don't take care of your child. Give parents, any parent, a little patience and grace. You don't know their story.
You don't know
what
their story.
You don't know what their life is like every single day. As a parent, Barbara, when we're teaching these things, you always have to be on. So when you are out and you, like for instance with the bellies, I can't not correct that or try to shape and change that into something positive. When it happens, I have to stop what I'm doing and work with this. So you have to be ready at a moment's notice for anything at any time.
Consistency, right? But anything at any time, but always having to. You can't just run out and ignore it. The autistic child needs the consistency.
That
and
is
all
actually
children, basically.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah,
Johnny, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Well,
I think
sorry,
what I
Johnny.
was going to say is that
Great.
We talked about, and I think Van will do things like he'll have. I think what it is they just don't know. Like, I mean, Van will run around in his underwear, and or he will. To this day, he still carries a blanket around, and he's 19, and he calls my mom Dance Star, but another good example is like, for example, my other nephew Brian, who is on the spectrum, they always start to get funny views of me a little bit, like because I was watching them. The only time I would watch my nephew Ryan, is when we were playing video games together, or I was in my room eating cherry pie. Well, Ryan thought that, he sat down and he told my mom, he goes, Johnny has the best life, but I want to grow up, I want to be just like Johnny. And he goes, well, that's really sweet. Why? Well, because he gets to have fun, he gets to play video games all the time and eat cherry pie in his room. And she thought that's all I did. He didn't have a job, he didn't know, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, this kid doesn't understand. And another good example of it is that I think this made everybody kind of chuckle, but my girlfriend came to see me many years ago. She was my ex-girlfriend. She came to see me, and Ryan, whenever Ryan would come over, if I was in a room. If I was in a house and Ryan was in a house, Ryan would sit next to me. Just what he would do every time. And so he, all of a sudden, one day he comes over to visit me, and I'm with this woman, So he's kind of at a loss about what to say. It's like, well, what's going on? What are you doing? And he didn't understand the concept that we were being together, like romantically, that we weren't really, socializing so much, that I had to put energy towards, her, being with her. So he kept following us around and, wanting to know, like, oh, okay, where are you guys going? Oh, okay, And we could hear my sister laughing in the background, and I kind of had to explain to her later on. It's like, listen, he just doesn't get it. He's not used to seeing somebody used to seeing someone in a courtship. He's not used to seeing that. and he doesn't understand that,
Especially
when you
you.
have two people, yeah, it's like it was. And I mean, from what I understand, my brother-in-law has no brothers or sisters, so
Really?
So he would have seen, if he was going to see somebody in a romantic relationship, he doesn't understand it. He didn't understand what was going on.
Oh, especially you, Johnny, being his uncle, all of a sudden with a girl holding her hand. That's different for him. Because I'm learning today, Megan, tell me if I'm wrong. Everything has to be taught to the autistic child. Every little detail seems like has to be taught.
That's the thing. We neurotypical people, we often learn from our environment. People with autism also learn in their environment, but there's so many rules to our language, our communication, our socialization, and there's shades of that we don't talk about, but we implement. For instance, don't go up and touch a stranger's belly. Or, what Van was doing with Jonathan is Jonathan was modeling having a relationship with a woman or having a girlfriend, and he may have never seen that before. So that's what he was doing right then and there. He was modeling what that would be like. So Van's curiosity was, I want to learn more. And we learn by watching. Have you ever heard of the 100th monkey effect?
No.
I've heard of it, reminds me.
100 monkeys in a room, and you teach one monkey to open a banana. After time passes, you can come back, and all 100 monkeys will have learned this skill over time by watching the one monkey do it. And so,
can you repeat what that's called? Can you repeat?
100th monkey effect.
Oh, cool.
The 100th monkey effect. Yeah. And we're the same way. Even though I might not teach it, we're always watching. And so a person with autism, a person without autism, what they're learning is what they're exposed to all the time. So therefore, if they're watching TV, they may have misconstrued ideas and perceptions and concepts about our actual world, because what's real and what's not, what's fiction and what's truth. And so we have to really dive into these concepts with this population and teach on a whole nother level based on where they are individually. Because again, if you've met one person with autism, you have only met one person with autism.
Is this really expensive to get the right teaching? I mean, you must have to monitor their television viewing, because you don't know everything that's going into their head is sticking somehow, and it might be hard to get unstuck. And this is a lot, and this costs money. This takes patience. This takes time. And if you're a stay-at-home mom and you don't have any money, I mean, is there any funding for this? And that's what I want to stop right here, because we have 15 more minutes, and I want to say, okay, do you have foundations? What do you do? Where do we go to find you? What is the best place, social media and or website, or both?
Yeah,
I'm
on
that first, and then we'll continue. I'm sorry, Megan, because I want to shout out your info, because that's so important for people to be able to, all of our listeners, to get a hold of you. And then we'll continue with the last part, which is so interesting. And I have a couple more questions, too.
Absolutely. Social media, I'm on Instagram as Bohemian Megan, and I'm on Facebook as Megan Harris. I think I might be maxed out on my friends, so if you want to follow me, that's great. You want to send me a private message, I'd love to chat with you. I'm working on a book. I'd love to host parent groups and share the information I have with other parents. I am down to collaborate and help further the improvement of this field in any way I can.
Okay, awesome. So Bohemian Megan. And how do you spell, and where is that again? Is that .com or is
Instagram.
that on social media?
That's
Instagram. I
that's
love Instagram. How do you spell your Megan? I'm sure it'll come up when I start typing it in.
Megan.
Okay, so that's easy. So now everybody knows where they can connect with you. Bohemian Megan and what?
on Instagram, and then on Facebook, it's Megan Harris.
Okay.
I think
awesome.
I've got a picture
Okay.
with sunglasses on, and I might be in my bathing suit.
Okay, so you just love you're involved, you are educated, definitely, you have experience, obviously, and you have a love for it, a passion, a very big passion for this, and that's amazing. And you want to connect with anybody else who has the same thing or wants to learn. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. I have a question. I had a little baby. I still have her. She's 13 now. But when you go get your shots, you have to get immunized. I was there, and I have another friend, Jenny McCarthy, and she was a Playboy Playmate just like a few months after me, you know. So we were working together. We were friends, and she's amazing. We had a lot of great experiences together. So when she had her baby, it was very well publicized that her child has autism. So
you know,
she took
her
time off.
book, Barbara.
Go ahead.
Her book, her very first book, when she wrote about her son, I believe his name is Ethan.
Evan.
Changed.
Yeah.
Evan. Thank you, Evan. I read it maybe 12 years ago, and Barbara, it changed my life. I decided in that moment that I was going to go back to school and be a speech therapist so I could work with these kids and be a bridge between professionals and parents. You know, when Gage was diagnosed with autism, they told us, oh, you're going to hear all these crazy things about diets and food, and there's snake oil salesmen. Believe none of it is what they told me. And they basically gave us a death sentence. He's going to be like this. He's not going to get better. We left heartbroken. What does the future look like for a child with autism? This was in the early 2000s. We had no idea. And so after reading her book, I said, you know what? I know what I need to do. And I immediately enrolled in a program in Dallas, Texas for speech-language pathology. Oh, my goodness. I have chills all over my arms and my legs the whole time you were talking, just like tons of chills coming and going. Oh, my gosh. That is so amazing that the friend that I've had for all these years and I've watched and, you know, oh, my gosh, I even did a movie for her now ex-husband director. I was in his movie. So I was always so aware. I follow Evan Asher on Instagram. He's amazing. And then to find out that these people, their story changed your life is just fabulous. And you know, I'm not the only one. I'm just one that's now talking about my story in hopes that maybe I can inspire and motivate other parents to see another way, because there is hope. And you will. And you are. Thank you. I love it. Johnny, this is amazing. Thank you for connecting with Megan Harris. She's doing amazing things. She's done great things with her son. What a wonderful person.
What I was going to say something is that, you know, it's funny because when I started with the show, I knew I couldn't do it alone. So that's why I love the fact that Barbara's here. I mean, it's sort of like have you ever tried to interview someone alone? It's very hard to do. So when Barbara comes on, it's like, oh my goodness, oh thank God she's here. You know, it's a breath of fresh air.
You have a. It's great that you have a. I said it's awesome that you have a co-pilot to help you navigate.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Yeah.
By the way,
really seemed to click.
Do you? Now I don't know if I mentioned this to you. You do? Did I ask you if you had Roku?
You did ask me if I have Roku. I actually downloaded your channel, and it's in my Roku channels.
Did you leave a rating?
I will, absolutely. I'll do that today.
Okay, because
thank you so much.
Let's tell people what it's called. So if there's anybody else listening, they can go on there too, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead and tell them.
Life, Laughter, Happiness. Life, Laughter, Happiness, Learn. It's our new channel on Roku under the category of education. Oh my gosh, that'd be so wonderful if we had Megan Harris come and teach us more on that channel. Wouldn't it be, Johnny?
That would be wonderful. Would you have any interest in that, Megan?
Oh my goodness, I would love to. I would be honored.
Great.
It would be on Blue Jeans, and we do our thing with Blue Jeans so that, you know, it's sort of like our own personal CNN. It's really quite clever.
It's like Zoom. Everybody knows, Johnny, everybody knows Zoom, and I don't know why, but nobody knows. Blue Jeans has been around longer, but they obviously tiled their thing wrong. I mean, stop. Blue Jeans, what in the heck? Okay, Zoom, that is telling you something. Okay, we're going to Zoom. So, but we happen to do ours on Blue Jeans. Is that funny, Megan?
Okay.
That's crazy. Try to teach that to your child tomorrow. God. It's hard enough to learn it as is, right? Oh, gosh.
Absolutely.
Right.
The world we live in is already complicated enough to teach in some ways.
Exactly. Well, we love what you do, and it's been amazing hearing all the different things, and then Johnny's stories too, which he loves because this is his family, and they are so tight-knit, and he has it going on inside the family, and there's a lot of fun stories to share. Is there a place where Johnny could go and share? Like, is there an autistic place for him where he can go share with other people? And that would be like on Facebook or something? Do you know anything like that?
Well,
I know there are parent groups on autism. I haven't actually searched out to see if there are any groups for individuals with autism. That's a great question. Something else that would be beneficial is having groups for siblings. They're often overlooked and kind of sometimes get the short end of the stick because the focus is often on a person with autism.
I agree. I had his sisters come on and talk about it for an episode. How it was growing up with an autistic child. They came on, Megan. I had his sisters. Both his sisters came on.
Okay.
What I was going to say is that it's actually hereditary. So usually it's not uncommon. Now with us, this is what seems to happen. It seems to hit the men in the family. Like, my sister will have 2 kids, and then, my other sister will have, 2 kids, and then, they're both men, and then, I'm the one that seems to have the problems, whereas the women in the family, they sort of avoided it. I mean, earlier when I was telling you, it was my nephew Ryan, then there was and then there is, it's just that they all do some pretty strange things. Like they'll, like Alex will, but see, that's what I mean by they do sweet things in a lot of ways. Like, for example, the person that was taking care of her, Celeste, she broke up with her boyfriend. So she started crying. And then Alex walked over to her and said, Celeste, no cry. You there?
Sure, yes. No, yes, I hear you. You were talking about the boys, and I want to bring this up. This is very important. So professionals, as a professional, we are taught that the cause of autism is unknown. As a parent who has spent hours and hours and hours researching every possible thing, I'm going to say it's going to be the perfect storm for that individual person. It's a combination of nature and nurture, genetics, environment, in utero, the birth process, the first years of life, what we put into our body, all of the things. But you want to talk about boys. So right now, 1 in 54 children have autism. Okay? 1 in 37 boys have autism. So it far and away impacts boys greater than girls. And it's really interesting if you were to look at the characteristics of a boy with autism versus a girl with autism. A girl with autism is going to present very differently than the boys.
Really? How so?
My experience with girls is it's kind of split. There's a lot of higher functioning or lower functioning. There's not that middle range where boys, they're going to show up almost, 3 out of 4 boys will have autism, and one of them will be the girl. The boys are going to have the range. And it's really interesting. I've done a lot of research. I've gone to biomedical conferences. I've worked with nutritionists and doctors and holistic practitioners talking about the many components of autism, because while we have speech impairments, language deficits, behavior problems, we also have gut issues. We have problems in our methylation cycle that break down. There are so many things going on that affect cognition. Some of these kids don't ever sleep. Some of them live on mac and cheese. Every person with autism, their environment is different than the one before it. And so there's
they might have
many
other things too. Like Johnny has cerebral palsy on top of that. So I always thought that the cerebral palsy was if like maybe I couldn't understand him or something. It wasn't like, pronounced clearly. I thought that was due to that. I didn't know it was the autism. But he's conquered both of those. But we're talking about all different, okay. I'm sorry, I'm getting off on another subject. But my main subject when I was talking about Jenny McCarthy was when I took my daughter into get her shots as a little baby, it's traumatizing. Well, I found out it's the same doctor that she had that she left. And he was the doctor to the stars. I mean, he was Mark Wahlberg's kids, all these celebrity posters all over the place. You name it, they went to this guy. And I didn't even choose him for that reason. He was appointed to me at Cedars-Sinai when I had this child that was like 7 weeks premature. So here, Dr. Wallstein sitting there on my end of my bed at the hospital for my first night. They had to teach me how to use the heart monitor and the lung monitor, and I was taking her home. Oh my goodness, there he was. So I felt really close to him, and when months go by, and then you go in and you've talked to him many times, and that's your doctor. I mean, he was there. He was there the first day, right there. You don't want to say, hey, I got to go somewhere else. But I heard that Jenny McCarthy said, Dr. Walton, she left him because he's old school about the shots. Well, I did the shots, okay? I did it. People, I did it. My daughter is fine. So she left him because of the shots. She thinks that's what gave her child autism. What do you say to that?
Oh, let's open this can of worms. Okay. So I wear many hats. As a professional, I have to tell you that the cause of autism is unknown. As a mom of a child who watched my child have seizures as a 2-year-old, right after he got vaccinated, his language regressed immediately after his MMR shot. We can go further.
Oh, no.
He was fully vaccinated until he was MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella.
That's a lot of stuff going in that little baby.
Oh, yeah. And, as a mom, I had 2 other children after Gage. So, personally, my younger 2 children have had 0 vaccinations. Gage hasn't had any since he was 5. I think if I were to live in a place that had mandatory vaccinations, me personally, I may choose to move. Now, I also want to say something very important. That is my personal choice, and you have to do whatever is right for you and your family. If you feel that a vaccine is going to be beneficial for you, then you follow that. If you feel that a vaccine could
you might
be
be
harmful
risking
to
your child's life. You might be risking a lot, though. I think we need to look further into this because I changed my mind. Thank God she's okay. But now, if I had a child again right now, I probably wouldn't do it. I'm telling you, I probably wouldn't. I changed my mind 2 years ago when she went in there before 5th grade, and he said, well, here's a vaccine for what she might get as a venereal disease. And I said, you're going to give her a venereal disease shot in just in case she might get one? Heck no. I left. I looked that up. I got chills all over again. Confirmation. This is not good, people. They have paralyzed children with this shot. this is not, I think it's called IPV vaccine, something like that. You probably know about it.
Yes, I understand.
Yes,
I hear you.
please
I hear
tell
you.
us.
But here's the thing. Here's one of the things that Gage has taught me above all else, that there's no authority greater than the knowledge I can find in myself. So I've heard doctors tell me contradictory things. I've heard professionals in their field say things that I have found to be not true. So you have to be your own authority and decide what's best for you.
Okay, Megan, but okay, lastly, do you feel that's being done? Do you think that the government or anybody, any kind of affiliations, foundations, anything like that, there's been enough research, or it's not just into autism once you get it, but how does it happen? How do we get it? I mean,
how
is
do
there
we get
enough
autism?
research? In your opinion, is there enough research about how and why and anything about it? Is there enough being done?
Absolutely not. We need more research. We need more studies that are legitimate studies. We need professionals who can understand what a parent may choose to do outside of their own scope of practice and be accepting of that. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
If you could tell everybody one first step that they could take to make a difference, what would that be?
Oh, one step to make a difference. You know what?
Just the
you
first
have a
one
child
that might
with
lead
autism?
into more.
Let's see.
Something that could maybe lead into more. Something that we could do. Okay, so our heart has been tugged today listening to this. I'm sure a lot of people
the answer,
are feeling this way.
Barbara,
yes.
is easy. This is easy. The answer is more love, acceptance, and patience.
Okay.
That's it. When you are frustrated with your child, or if you're a professional working with someone in this population, you are being challenged to go deeper within yourself and hold your patience just a little bit longer. If they are making you frustrated, it is a challenge to you to figure out why you are frustrated. Is it because so many times you're not understanding? That is a reflection of the teacher. If the student isn't learning, we need to look at this from different perspectives. And sometimes we have to take off that, mom hat or dad hat and put on a different hat. Yes.
Johnny, do you think I am patient with you?
Yes, you are.
How do I rank 1 to 10?
You're a 10. You're a 10.
Oh, thank you. Okay, good. Because I do. I exercise my patience, but I exercise my patience with a lot of different kinds of humans out there. Well, this has been wonderful. Like, all joking aside, though, wow, we really touched upon a lot of really important things today with you, Megan, and I really appreciate you coming on. We do. We appreciate it. Thank you, Johnny and Megan.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Johnny, for finding me and reaching out and seeing if I would be interested in this. I'm always interested in seeing how I can share my knowledge of autism with the world. There are so many bridges we have to gap between the parent world and the professional world, and then just in general with the autism, how we have structured this whole thing. We need to talk about these things and have conversations around, is this actually beneficial for the person?
Oh, yes. From one to the rest of the spectrum. It's like a rainbow. You know what? Everybody matters. And open up yourself and be kind and be open and be patient, because you never know. One of these autistic people, they might be the one who finds the cure of some horrible disease. I mean, take it from me. I work with Johnny, and I'm surprised every day. I always think he's highly intelligent. So many times I've thought that, and I've told many people this. So good for you, and good for everybody who's out there, who's open and wants to know and help and be open to autistic people, because they're awesome.
They definitely make the world a brighter place. You nailed it with
sure.
rainbow. I think we are each our own individual color.
That's what I when I see spectrum, when I hear the word spectrum in the autistic spectrum, I always think of a rainbow. Yeah, that's great. That'd be a great logo for you.
Definitely. It would be fitting.
Okay,
Actually,
I was
the autistic,
Oh my God! What? Oh,
the autistic
I was going to do the
one
shout
of the
out.
autistic logos is a jigsaw puzzle piece. Am I right?
Oh, really?
You are right.
It's actually kind of funny because one time I was in the car with my sister, and she was in the car with her two autistic kids, my nephews. So we get pulled over by a policeman, and she doesn't give her a ticket, and then he tells her to go away, and I'm saying, you know what I think happened, don't you? He pulled you over. He saw the Autism Speaks sticker on the back of your car, and he saw the two kids, and he felt sorry for you, and he let you go. That's what I think happened. It was.
Well, I don't think that she likes pity. She doesn't even need pity. Her life has been fulfilled, right, Megan? I mean, right? Because nobody wants pity.
Well,
Nobody wants pity.
This is all about perspective. How can you take something that one person would look at as pity or a situation that would be lesser than, and find the actual gold and wisdom and diamonds in that situation that will make you a better person? Because it's always there. It's just taking it and transforming it.
I love it. And that's what you do.
Thank you, guys.
And that's awesome. You are welcome. And this has been absolutely amazing. So everybody, if you want to connect with Megan Harris, go to bohemianmegan.com. Am I correct?
No, it's
that's right.
I'm working on a website. I don't have a website yet. But I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is Bohemian Megan, and Facebook you can find me as Megan Harris.
Okay, perfect. So it was Instagram that I love your Bohemian Megan username. That is cool. I'm going to check you out, and we're going to connect.
Okay.
And thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do. Maybe next time we can have Van come on. Next time after he hears this show and he feels comfortable. Sometimes they have to. You never know. They have to listen and they have to feel comfortable. So thanks, Johnny, so much, and thank you, Megan. Thank you to all of our listeners.
And don't forget to do the shout out.
Talk to you tomorrow. Okay. Visit us on our website, lifelaughterhappiness.com, and Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, across the board. It's all Life, Laughter, Happiness. Don't forget to subscribe while you're on our YouTube channel, finding this show to listen to again, and all of our other shows. And also, if you have Roku,
our channel, TV channel,
please watch our show on Roku, Life, Laughter, Happiness, Learn. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
We wish you a great night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, Megan. Good night, Barbara.
Thanks, Megan. Thank you, Johnny. Good night.
Aloha.